Welcome to the Get Real About Safety podcast. In our podcast, we discuss the new view of safety, what works and what doesn't work, to break down old paradigms and help you improve safety performance in your organization. Hi, I'm Mike.
And I'm Pam, and we appreciate you listening. Please share and subscribe and tell others about this podcast. You can find us on most podcast platforms and also on YouTube.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Get Real About Safety. Today we have a very special guest, and I think you'll really like this podcast. We're very pleased to have Jeff Palombo, Vice President of Safety Operations for Robins and Morton. Robins and Morton is a Birmingham, Alabama-based general contractor, heavily involved in construction and renovation of hospitals and healthcare facilities across the U.S. We've been working with Jeff and his management team for several years now, and they have made tremendous amount of progress in improving their safety culture and the integration of human performance operating philosophies into their operations. So this podcast is about the Robins and Morton journey and where they are today. Hi, Jeff.
Mike, how are you?
I'm doing great. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this interview today. I think it's going to be very beneficial for a lot of folks.
Man, I hope so. And I know we've been talking about trying to get this together for a bit. And actually, I'm disappointed I couldn't get there to see you today. But, maybe another podcast we do would sit across from one another.
Absolutely. Maybe this COVID thing will die down a little bit and we can have a little more personalized deal here.
Man, let's hope so.
So I guess, we just want to kind of talk about your journey, Jeff. And so just if you would, just to kind of start out, if you would tell everybody a little bit about who you are, how you got into safety, how you ended up at Robins and Morton, and just sort of the journey since then.
Yeah, man. And it's been a journey, let me tell you. Mike, I went to, and we'll start there. I grew up in Pennsylvania, and for those safety folks out there, probably have heard of Indiana University of Pennsylvania. First accredited school for safety, which, when I originally went, I didn't go for safety. I went for business, really undecided. But interesting, my father had worked for Mine Safety Appliances for his whole career. He was a shipper in the shipping department. So, every now and again, he'd come home with some safety device, whatever. And I guess I didn't think much about it. But man, when I went to IUP, and it was fortuitous, I didn't realize that, that they had this great safety school there.
Yeah.
Went for business, met some guys on my floor actually that were involved in safety. And I was still trying to figure out what I really wanted to do. And they talked to me about it a little bit. And, man, it seemed really interesting. So, I actually ended up changing my major. I got into safety, saw that I really did enjoy it. And
do you still enjoy
went from there. I'm sorry?
Do you still enjoy it?
Oh, man, Mike, and I know, if you don't enjoy it, you will not be successful in this business. It is a tough business, but very rewarding, most rewarding business.
Yes.
So interestingly enough, probably near the end of my college career, I was trying to find internships. And of course, Indiana University or IUP had, they could set you up with internships and everything else. Well, I went out on my own and ended up working for a general contractor, construction manager out of Pittsburgh. And, it was over a summer, and I was actually at the Sony plant in New Stanton, Pennsylvania. It was an old Volkswagen plant that they were renovating. And that was really my first taste, of what this is all about. Now, interestingly enough, I got thrown out of the superintendent's trailer probably after the first, it was the first day. Here's me, this new safety guy, not necessarily understanding what he's doing, seeing an issue, trying to get it resolved. And that was my introduction to safety. It was like, hey, you got a problem with me, is what he said. And I can't tell you everything he said, but long story short, I got thrown out of the trailer. Well, I ended up working with that superintendent years later as well at the same company. And he laughed. He said, man, I figured one of two things. he said, you'd either quit or stay. And so it was, that was just the way he was. And we became good friends. We actually worked on another job in New Jersey. So, and he had changed as well. So again, my first introduction to safety. Well, I had spent several months there, went back to school. My boss at the time called me and said, hey, we've got a need in Syracuse. We will pay for your last semester, which I was actually doing my internship then. Pay for your last semester. You go up there. I actually had one class left to take, human physiology and anatomy. I'd have drugged my feet because all my buddies said, man, the professor at IUP is the most difficult. It's a hard class. So, of course, I waited to the end. But I ended up taking that at Lemoyne College in I forget what the town that was. I guess at whatever town that was. Yeah. But I spent several years in Syracuse as project safety manager. Went back to Pennsylvania for a bit and ended up going to an electrical contractor. We had a job in Chicago. It was the McCormick Center expansion job there. And it was huge at that point. It was, I think there was 2,000 plus people, maybe more on that project. And we alone had about 500 electricians. So I probably spent almost a year in Chicago, which was great. And that was back in, I think that was 95. And of course, Mike, I moved into we were right on Lake Michigan, moved into a nice apartment building, 53rd floor, and best place I'd ever lived. But it was only short-lived. We were there about a year, and then I went to another division of the company. The company I was with at the time was kind of going through some changes, and I actually became safety director probably way too early in my career with another division of the company. We had several divisions there as well. So, I say that, and I wish I would have had a mentor early on. And not that I didn't, my bosses at the time were mentors, but somebody to really help me focus. But again, I became safety director probably in it might have been 97. Mm-hmm. And boy, did I fail quite a bit. I mean, we talk about human performance and failure all the time. Yeah. I learned a lot from my mistakes.
That's a good thing.
So, yeah, no, absolutely. And a really good environment, good group. So I was there for several years. Now that division at some point in time then was closed down as well. I mean, they started selling.
How did you end up getting to Robins and Morton from all that?
Man, next step, I went back to Pennsylvania, spent about 2 years with a contractor there, and then found Robins and Morton. I knew, the company I was with, man, again, good people, but just they were not there in their safety journey where I needed to be or thought we should be. So I was looking and ended up just shooting resumes out and got a call. And, man, never thought in my life, Mike, would I live in Alabama? Man, I
was wondering about that.
But I got to tell you, and everybody told me when I met and came to Robins, and that was in 2005. They said, man, this is a diamond in the rough, this area in Birmingham and everything else. And man, it's been wonderful. Personally for me, I mean, my kids grew up here, and my older son went to the University of Alabama, and my younger son's going to Mississippi State right now. So, so I think for Robin's journey, the company, I think 1946 is when they began, and they had never had a safety director for them before. They had some issues several years before, maybe 2003, 2004 timeframe, where they said, man, we've got to improve somewhat. And they got engaged with a consultant that was helping them. And at that point in time, the consultant said, man, you really need to grow some type of department. So through their recommendation, they started a search. And, just really, again, fortuitous that we came together, because I came to a company that is family-based organization. Mm-hmm. They care about their people already. They just didn't know everything that they needed to do from a safety standpoint to continue to improve. So that's really where that journey started. And man, when I came in, they had a program just like everybody else, but we really needed to start focusing. Let's develop policy and procedure that is going to be effective. Let's develop some training that's going to be effective. Let's start communicating out to everybody what we're going to do, how we're going to try to transform the organization. So I spent probably the first 2 years, I was hitting, 17 or 18 jobs a month. I mean, it was a department of one at that point in time.
Yeah.
So, and
Army
kind
of
of
one.
sharing, oh yeah, sharing my vision with our managers, letting them get to know me because, again, Mike, in safety, unfortunately, and we talk about the new view and the old view of safety. Well, there's that police view mentality as well. And that's what a lot of folks have grown up in, and that's what they understand. So they're like, oh, this safety guy's coming out here, and he's going to just be a real pain for me.
Sure.
So I was trying to share with them what we were going to accomplish and how we were going to do that. So really get them on my side before we started making a lot of transitions and changes. And I would say we did that and kicked around for a while. Now, partly my goal was obviously to build the department. And I actually had shared that initially with the group. And, I just think when you haven't done that in an organization or you don't have that setup, you don't completely maybe even agree with it or understand it. So it was like selling, and safety is always about sales anyways.
Sure.
I don't care anybody that says it's not. It's, we're constantly selling why and constantly selling what's important and what's in it for me and how it's going to benefit. There's a lot of different things it's going to benefit. So, with Robins, we started, putting guys on projects full time. We made a decision. And there's always a struggle there, Mike, because is it a dollar value? Is it a number of people value? Is it what's the right number? And I don't know if we'll ever get there, but I think we're pretty good. To me, it's evaluating the project, making a determination of the risk, making a determination of the folks that are there and the subs or the trade partners that we've got, and then making that decision to really help those team members.
And that's probably the best way to go because so many companies set some number like for every 25 people or for every 50 people, you got to have a safety person.
Sure.
And I kind of like the way you guys do it of evaluating that on a case-by-case basis and based on the risk. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, it'd be easier for us as safety guys, if, hey, we got a safety guy on every job. But, the value, and I know we're getting off side of the journey, but the value of that would be awesome because to me, a safety manager on a job, their responsibility is to teach that management team.
Yeah.
To teach them how to be safety leaders, not to do it all for them and to really engage them. And unfortunately, sometimes you've got that old school mentality that, hey, I got a safety guy on the job now. I don't need to do anything. And, we've gotten beyond that, which, I think every organization goes through that.
That growth curve.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And with everything that we've done over the years, and I think that helps them see that this is the path that we're taking. So again, we started putting folks on projects full time. We got some division safety managers to start visiting jobs and really grew the department. Fast forward to 2015, I think there's 30 of us in the department right now.
Yeah.
And, we've got multiple layers. We've got our director of safety development, Corey Kennedy, who, Corey's just a jack of all trades. And man, we wouldn't be as successful as an organization without his leadership too.
He is sharp.
He's great. Well, and Todd and some of these all the division guys. And we've actually restructured this year a little bit more, Mike. We've elevated some of our division safety managers to division safety directors. I don't know if that's the right title or what, but we've given them direct responsibility to manage guys on site, which I think from a career path standpoint, that makes sense. From a management standpoint, that makes sense because I certainly can't manage 30 people, I try to talk to them the best I can. And of course, we've all got a good relationship, but, it's a lot easier to have somebody that can focus a little bit more.
Sure. Absolutely. So how did you guys go from the programmatic phase to growing your culture?
Man, I think to me that was always a goal because I did have some exposure to that early on and not necessarily human performance. We didn't know that's what it was called, but trying to manage it differently. And I think, Mike, as you had mentioned earlier, you and I kind of got hooked up. I think it was 2010 when we first started talking because we knew we wanted to make a transformation. We knew that we wanted to have safety leadership versus what we were trying to do. And really, we never came at it from a police state mentality, but just ultimately sometimes it degrades down there. So we had to build the programs. We had to share our philosophy and start working in that next step. And I can remember sitting with Robin during business planning, and Robin's the chief operating officer and president. He's my boss. Sitting there and him looking at me and saying, what more can we do? And man, to me, and I've got to say, Mike, and you and I have talked about it a long time. Without our senior leadership's support in this organization, man, we would not be where we were today. So,
and you definitely have that. You definitely have that.
So Robin said, what more can we do? And that's when we said, well, let's develop some training. Let's talk about leadership training, because you see it out there. We've had help from our insurance carrier with things in the past, but we really wanted to define something internal to pull all these components together. And I tell you, my search then scared me to death, because we want to bring this course together, and really it was kind of that next step of our organization and kind of that rallying cry of where we're going to go. And man, there's so much good stuff out there, but pulling something together decent would take a lot of time and effort. We were willing to do it, but we wanted to get moving. So, and that's when I met you. I think it was Corey or Gentry Jones said, have you ever met Mike? I said, no. So actually, Corey and I came and met you at Georgia Tech.
You did. You did.
And I shared what we were going to try to do. And you said, man, I think I've got something kind of all ready to help you. And that's when you shared the leadership materials with us. No, that was not the leadership. That was the pursuit of safety excellence.
It was, yeah.
Training that we did. I'm jumping forward.
Right.
So we did our pursuit. And actually, it's funny, Mike, when we do our HP training, and because you do it. I mean, you're doing the heavy lifting. I just kick it off. We talked about human performance back in 2012 when we rolled that out. Mm-hmm. We talked about human error. We talked about all those things, and everybody, it's funny when too, from listening to them, they're like, oh yeah, I think I remember something about that. So it was an easy move in. So we were kind of setting the stage, talking a little HP, talking about leadership, talking about all those components during that, and just saying, guys, we're going to the next level. Our senior leadership's engaged, involved, and supporting it. So we're going to head in that direction. Yeah,
you did a good job of laying the foundation.
Well, and we had to get them involved because, and Robin always kind of looked at me and kind of laughed. If you recall, I'd always tell everybody, I said, Robin's going to speak. I said, this is the most important part of this presentation because this is where the support is from. And, he'd kind of shake his head, but, it's true. I mean, if our teams didn't understand our organization and Bill Morton and Robin and these guys want it, they're not going to deliver it. I mean, they're going to do their best, but not to the level where we're at currently.
Absolutely.
So, and Mike, if you recall, after that pursuit class that we did, and man, I don't know how we pushed as much material through in 6.5 hours as we did. If you remember the guys in the back, because I think we helped, we did it in conjunction with you. We had timekeepers in the back raising flags and everything. But we got it together.
And those were huge audiences. I mean, you had like 100 people at a time in those things.
Yeah.
Just month after month.
Man, I tell you, Mike, there was one day when we were doing it, and I'm sure it's happened to you because you teach and train all the time. I lost my train of thought. We got 100 people there, and I'm over in the corner. I'm not even in the front because I'd walk back and forth, and man, my mind just blanked out.
Middle lapse.
Yeah. And thankfully I was able to bring it back, but man, that's one of the scariest things when you're communicating and talking to folks. But after that, again, back to another business planning, another year, we felt great about delivering that training. And we told everybody, if we don't do anything else, and then we've wasted a lot of resources, we've wasted a lot of time, and we're just not going to continue to get better. So it was, what's the next step? Where do we go from here? And that's where, again, you and I talked, and we talked about the culture assessments. So I think that was 2012, well, we were kind of talking about it through that time of doing the pursuit class. But 2013 in earnest is when you went out and you went out and surveyed most of our projects, if I recall.
Mm-hmm.
And,
about 30 or 40, I think.
Yeah, there was that was a lot of time and a lot of good information. So, I think that was, man, was it 2013 end of the year when you developed all your recommendations and gave us all the different projects and information. So we got that information from you. We as a group came together, talked through, and as you know, one of the things that we do is we've got our monthly safety team meeting where we've got all the projects on there.
Yeah.
And I think we actually had you deliver the results
Mm-hmm.
On one of those meetings just to let everybody kind of know where we're at as an organization. Because if we didn't know where we were at, we don't know where we're going.
It is the first step.
And again, one of the great things that came out of that was us really defining safety leadership and what that means in our organization and how that's going to help us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, back in Pursuit, we developed our value for safety. We talked through all that and what that actually means as an organization. Moving into the safety leadership portion, what does a safety leader do? How can we affect change on the jobs? How can we manage that change? Of course, we had our work groups and we worked through a lot of other things through there as well. And, probably the two biggest, let me say positively, most of the folks that you surveyed, if I recall, said, man, they believe Robins and Morton cares about their employees.
Overwhelmingly.
Not just their employees, but the trade contractors as well.
That was, I don't mean to interrupt you. That was a thing that was unique about you guys is that you included your subcontractors. And I'll tell you, many companies don't do that. And I really applaud you guys for doing that since you use so many of those folks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, are we truly there if we don't know if they're there with us? To me, they're just part of this whole organization. And
Sure.
We have to manage it that way because what affects them affects us as a company too. So, we went through that evaluation. We've got your recommendations. Where we were weak, and I think most organizations are, is recognition of safe behaviors, encouraging people. The performance coaching that we ultimately did and trained everybody up on. So I think we had a great opportunity there. We could inspect jobs and everybody recognized that. We actually would correct things as we saw them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some of those, I say simple things. It was the cultural components where we needed to improve because,
Sure.
Again, if we don't reinforce things, and as you know, Mike, back in Pursuit and even leadership, we talked about consequences.
Yep.
And positive consequences, immediate consequences, and what that does. If you have even negative consequences, immediate will have a change, but those positive ones are way better in that capacity. So we came together. We did the safety leadership training for our folks, put them all through that. That was another in 2014. I think we started that.
And even your senior executives went through that as well.
Oh,
they were the first ones to go through.
First group to go through. They were the first group, I believe, to go through the human performance training as well, aside from our champions, which I know we'll get there. But,
they were, and that was powerful.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So it was, again, all told, everybody on board. And I think, man, I don't even know how many safety leadership classes we did, Mike. It was a lot. It was a lot. So that was 2014. And, I think, and one of the things we need to talk about offline is doing another culture assessment, because I think we're getting to that point where it'd probably be a good thing for to have you guys do that for us. But through this whole growth, ultimately you get to see a change in your managers and think about the evolution of even our younger managers who back in 2012, some of these guys were maybe assistant superintendent levels. And some of them progressed extremely quickly. Now we've got guys that are leading projects who have been in this safety culture mentality and climate since really they started. So that's where we really see a huge effect in the future of the organization, as well as those members that come in that we can get right from the beginning. Let them understand how we can do this, how it's not a burden, how, changing your approach and just communicating with people, that doesn't cost money.
Right.
I mean, granted, there's a lot of technical safety stuff we need to worry about and planning and getting ready for certain things and understanding how a task is going to be accomplished and all that technical. We do that. We're going to continue to do that. But this is easy. It changes us in the way that we approach safety and communication with our folks. So we've got these managers who are now at this juncture. So, we probably, and I was actually disappointed because you and I probably have been talking about human performance for years.
Yeah.
Of course, I read a lot of the books and it's interesting. I think it's the Department of Energy had put out some HP stuff.
Yes.
It was like 91 or something.
Oh, yeah, way back.
And really set the stage for those folks that started building programs and writing books and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as you read so much, there's such a fine line between human performance and human and organizational performance and, how to make a company better. So
That's right.
One of the values that we now talk about truly as doing human performance, it's not just about safety. It's about organizational excellence in every
And I'm glad you guys do that because that's what sells.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, we've got our Building Forward initiative as well that is really kind of the same. It's lean, but it's finding better ways. It's empowering people. It's leadership development. I mean, all the same things. So the stage has been set from our organization. And I would tell you, Mike, when we started our lean journey, it really was the safety piece that helped that. And Robert Gambrell, you'd hear him tell a story that, even at Maine, that's probably the first place. I think that's where you helped us initially. You did a culture assessment there, but you did some leadership training as well.
Correct.
We found out on that job that our workers thought we didn't care about them. And that was kind of the beginning of that transformation there. But that transfers into this lean journey and communicating with people and empowering people and transparency. I mean, all the things we do as an organization anyways, but putting a name and a title to it. So,
and Jeff, just to kind of add to what you're saying there for folks listening to this, Robins and Morton is one of the few construction companies that are actually doing lean construction. That's something that's primarily been done in the manufacturing industry, but construction is really kind of lagging getting into that. But you guys are really on the forefront.
Well, we are, and I think I would think there's not a lot, but there are some other contractors, and you probably know them that are on their lean journey as well. They may call it something different, but man, it makes sense as an organization as you continue to grow, as you've got so many responsibilities, trying to make sure that you can do it all. And that's the challenge. Lean. And again, we call it Building Forward. It's really that one and the same. And it's a journey that our company is very proud of. And it's interesting because the safety journey is no different. It really is that same, operational excellence transformation. So it's nice. We're on parallel, but the same journey.
Well, they marry up hand in hand.
Oh, absolutely. So where was I? We were in 2015, 2016 timeframe, I think. And Mike, we had a lot of growth during that period. And, again, you do certain things that you always need to do from a safety standpoint anyways. You update your policies and procedures and make sure that we're tying some of our new philosophies in there as well. And you make all those changes. But I was reading more about human performance and, probably one of the first, speakers I saw talk about it. It was actually at a Southern Company session. I forget what year, but that was my introduction to Todd Conklin.
Yeah.
And what I was amazed about Todd, it was just the simplicity of how he made it seem. And man, you're no different. I mean, when you communicate it out, the concepts are simple, but they could be very complex in understanding if you just can't explain it quickly. Or
and to kind of go along with that, that's kind of my same experience. Todd was my first formal introduction to human performance, and he's just
Yeah.
fabulous. And I just love the way he puts things in plain, simple terms and uses stories, and he's just top notch.
Oh yeah, yeah. So that was before I think we even did Pursuit. It was when I initially saw that. So I had it in the back of my mind since then. But think about it, Mike. If we would have taught human performance in earnest in 2012 and told our organization, told Robins and Morton, this is the journey where we're headed, you think I'd have got run out?
It would not have flown at that point in time.
Yeah, and not because they didn't buy into it. It was just such a new concept.
Oh yeah,
But we had to start from the beginning. We had to go through that curve, and get to where we're at. And man, I'd love to say we're perfect, firing on all cylinders everywhere. We got challenges every day, and just like every organization does. But I guess it was really in earnest 2019 last year when we started our HP courses. Really early in January, if you recall. Again, we started in 2018. You and I we kept communications up, and I think there might have been 1 year since 2012 that you didn't do any training for us, and it might have been like 2017.
Something
and
like that.
I'd have to think back why it was just we had everybody trained up. We got everybody where we wanted to be. We were still going to the next level though, and that's when you and I started talking about human performance in earnest, and you showed me the courses that you had. I think I actually came, man, I went with you to Ohio, I believe, and I watched you teach a course.
Yeah, that's right. You came to one of our other clients and sat in on one, and I remember that well.
Yeah, and I knew already that was the path we were going to take, but man, I wanted to see it in action, and so because I knew that's where we needed to go. And I had already started, I say, not forewarning, but talking about HP to our executives. We've got monthly meetings as well with those guys and just kind of communicating where we're headed. And always trying to keep them in the forefront of understanding where we're at and where we're going.
Sure.
So I've got their support. Because, again, you don't want to blindside anybody. All of a sudden, we got this new process, right? And it's funny, it's not a program, and we know that. It's an operating philosophy of where we're at now. But, it's still, you got to correct people from time to time. Was that human performance program? No, it's not a program. So, we taught, what did we do? 500 managers last year, Mike.
Yeah, we did. And you started out with your champions. Talk about that a little bit, your champion or implementation team. That group of managers, Mike, and we've got more, and I'd like to have more champions, but you got to kind of limit it. So we thought through, and it was actually a really good exercise. I had a couple of my division guys together. We talked through who really is a leader, who is a true safety leader in Robins and Morton right now. And despite even moving forward to human performance. So we developed that list of names. Robin and I then sat and looked at that list of names, and it was great. It was concurrence all the way through. So, and we reached out to those guys, and we asked them, we said, you're recognized as a safety leader in the organization. We want to go to the next level in our success of safety within the company, and we want you to help us do that. We want you to champion the cause. So, I think we originally sent, that may have been 20 or 25 folks. We narrowed it down to maybe 16 or 17 only because we just couldn't coordinate their schedules. So I told them, I said, even if you can't go through the first training, you're a champion, and, in my mind, whatever. But we got those guys engaged. We filtered them before we even did training in January for that group, Mike, if you remember. We sent them a bunch of information. We had some discussions with them about what this entails. We wanted to give them a heads up. Then we brought them in for the 3-day human performance class, and we really dug in deep. And I think the experiences that they had beforehand and the information discussions we had set the table for them. Yes.
And again, being the leaders that they are, it was just an easy transition in their mind. And really, when beginning fundamentals of human performance, old school safety, new school, they were already new school in their thinking and mentality. So was an easy transition. So we got them engaged. And then when we started doing the training, and, we originally talked about having them just deliver the HP training after that. And
right.
As much as I would love those guys to do it, man, nobody does it better, Mike, than you. And that's why, we'll continue to have you helping us. And because, again, it's you got this regimented approach about it, and it's not regimented. It seems free-flowing, but I know it's a lot of practice, a lot of control, a lot of everything that you do. So I just like the consistency, because I know if I tried to do it just like this conversation, I'm off on a tangent over here somewhere. I'm good at introducing. I mean, if you want me to teach technical stuff again, I can do that. I can follow the path, but I get excited and I get off on a tangent. Whereas you get off a little bit when the group requires it, but you're able to steer them back in pretty easy. So we had those guys out there. Not only did we have our champions there, we would have it kicked off by a senior leader as well. Obviously I couldn't have Robin do each one, because I think we did, it was 15 or 20 courses over the course of the year, and that encompassed about 500 people. So, that's a lot of time.
Yeah.
But we got champions there kind of to talk through their journey, to talk through their understanding. And most of the champions had been with us through Pursuit of Safety Excellence. Had went through the safety leadership training, had been through the transition. So it was great to hear their perspective.
And I thought that was great for them to preface those courses. And it just showed a personal commitment on the part of each of those champions. It was powerful.
Absolutely. Well, what else showed personal commitment? And you tell the story every time. Robin sat through the champions course, and he sat through one of the 2-day HP courses.
And Jeff, I got to say, and I've said this before, that's the first time I've seen the president of a company sit through a full course like that. You usually only get executives like that 2 or 3 hours.
Right.
But for him to come and sit through the full course and then come back and take the 2-day course, that just blew me away. That was powerful.
Yeah. Well, and you'll remember too, that second day, that court, when he was in there and we talked about drift, because we introduced that exercise as well. How interested was Robin, man, about that drift? And really,
he was focused.
I think he would have stayed an extra day.
He was laser, and that's the thing, is he was laser focused. That really got his attention, organizational drift. And and talk a little bit about what he did after that, about the exercises.
Well, man, one of the things obviously that we did is we had the teams put up where they thought we were drifting and some control measures. Man, he wanted all that information. We're probably lagging behind getting it out, Mike, but we've got it all categorized. We've got it all put together. Now, I've shared it with him so he can kind of see it. We've talked through some of the areas where we're drifting. But he definitely wanted – that's a starting point for us. If people think we're drifting, and a lot of the things were the common elements, and it was no surprise, because we actually asked them, what I think the teams really enjoyed, we asked not only where are we drifting in safety, where are we drifting in the organization elsewhere?
Absolutely. And
that was a powerful session.
It was. A lot of good stuff came out of those sessions.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I still probably have all the paper sheets. I've got Xerox or copies of them, pictures of them, everything else. So, and we've started that database. So it's been a good. It's been
one thing that struck me was that through all of those there were a lot of commonalities, but every now and then somebody would come up with something really unique and different, but that was significant.
It really was, and I remember. Because again, I was there with you each time, and it was like, oh, that's a new one, man. I got to write that down, And what I stopped doing through the class, because actually the first couple of courses that you ran for us, and I was taking notes throughout the whole thing again, just so we had that skeleton there, and then the drift exercise kind of doing the same thing. But I really wanted to focus on that and those components, and I think. Our teams had some good solutions as well.
They did.
And so I think that was great. Now, talk about drift again, talk about changing vernacular, which we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Man, Robin, at least once a month, I hear him say that word. And he's talking about, let's not drift here or there. And of course, what's going on right now with the COVID situation.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And we developed a field guide way back in March. It's been updated 6 times. But Robin, before the last holiday, he sent an email out to all the teams talking about how, we've got to assure we're not drifting from those practices because it's that important. And just to use that term, it makes me smile because, again, we've got to find the drift. But if we're not talking about it, then nobody's looking for it.
So. You got that right. So where have you guys been since we've done the training? I know you started working on some learning team stuff. And
we have.
Where are you with all that?
And we developed kind of in conjunction with, as we were going through the HP, a really good event learning team course. And it's actually a 1.5-day course, Mike, that, of course, we stole some stuff from you and other folks as well, because, you guys got it where it needs to be. So we've taken some of that, but we've developed our own incidents. Similar things that we did in the HP class.
Yeah.
But just a deeper immersion into that. So we've done some ELT teams. We've had a lot of event learning sessions already. We changed several years ago. Used to be, Mike, and I know I'm off topic, but I'll get back on. Used to be, when we had a recordable or a lost time, we'd have a meeting with the senior leadership.
Yeah.
And you know how I feel about numbers. I hate them to begin with. And I always thought it caused more problems than it was worth.
Yeah, sure.
We focused on the wrong issues versus taking care of people. But we got these numbers. We had to start somewhere, again, back many years ago. So we have these recordable meetings. Well, now they've evolved to, our SIF and PSIF meetings. We're looking at potential significant injury or fatality events differently. And, man, we're going to have a recordable where somebody gets something in their eye and they go and get a prescription. Man, and I want them to get a prescription. I want them to be taken care of.
Yeah,
I'll take that record. What I want to concentrate on is that scenario where somebody falls off a scaffold because the guardrail wasn't up there, 10 feet, doesn't get hurt, stands up and goes back to work. Because and I know those things sometimes aren't looked at. So we're focusing in on those SIFs and PSIFs in the organization and really focusing and spending our time in those event learning teams to evaluate those. Because, you lose momentum if we're doing an event learning team for a minor recordable. One, I think you're not getting the bang out of it that you really would need. You're not getting the information out of it that would help you. You kind of already know what's occurred there. So I think it's those potential ones that we really want to focus on. So we've been doing, I would say, this past year, even into 2019, because we really started it back then. We've done, 20 to 30 pretty deep ELTs, and
That's
really
great.
good information comes out of it. I would tell you one, Mike, that we did, and it was one I was on the fence of. We had a situation where we had an employee who was picking up a pan. We were doing concrete and picking up one of the pans, picked it up by himself. It was over 50 pounds. It's over our limit, and strained his thumb. Not a bad incident, not a bad injury. Probably could have done that 100 times, just had a sprained thumb. But again, we evaluate each one of those scenarios for is there any learning that can take place? We looked at that situation and we found out that we had been shorthanded that day on the crew. I believe the manager wasn't there. We were doing some stripping on another area of the building that required more of our folks over there. So again, shorthanded all around. We've got an employee, a good employee that has a can-do attitude, that's trying to do everything for us as an organization, try to help us be successful, taking on his responsibility and just going instead of saying, hey, I need some help. Well, we looked at that, and then we looked further. we looked at the pans that we were actually using, and they were different sizes in different locations. So what was happening is the forming crew above was screaming that they needed these pans. They needed them so they could continue getting ready to pour more concrete. Well, they were different sizes. So, it just didn't make sense. And so we went all the way back to looking at the design of the job.
Wow.
Could we have gotten in early enough to say, let's design it such that all the pans are the same size if we can do that. Let's assure that we have enough equipment, because we had somewhat of a shortage of our pans and equipment on the job. So again, the stripping crew always holds the forming crew up. I mean, it's just the nature of business. So, but give them enough so they can form. We don't have to rush our guys to do that work. So, I mean, there was a lot of other latent conditions in there that could have created some other challenges. What if we really needed, we were rushing so much that we got the crane operator in a upset from a standpoint of, hey, we need you to get this up there quick. Somebody pulls, snatches, trying to feed them as fast as we can, and all of a sudden we miss a step. All of a sudden you got a bigger issue. So that ELT was really kind of a profound one. It's probably one of the best ones for a perceived minor event that we had, because it showed some other latent conditions we had, and it really changed how we order materials, how we set a job up from a standpoint of forming material that we have. So it was a good session.
And that's, that truly is systems thinking there, and building defenses based on fixing the system. And I'm impressed the fact that you guys did that over something as simple as an injured thumb, because a lot of people would have just ignored that, but you saw the learning opportunities and how that could affect other areas. So I really applaud you guys for that. That's awesome.
Sure. I think that was one of the best. Now, again, we're not every incident are we going to do it, and we don't have time. I would love to, Mike. I'd love to spend all the time in the world, but we got to prioritize.
Yeah, we all got limited resources, don't we?
Oh, yeah.
That's good. That's good. So you guys are moving ahead with that. So what's next? Where are you headed next?
Man, well, and you and I were talking, I think we were talking about it beforehand. Obviously we're still in an education phase when it comes to human performance. I mean, we're doing, I say we're in an education phase. We developed a human performance tool guide. We've got that information in there. We actually revealed that at our Building Connect session that we had in Orlando in 2019, back in March. That was an organizational event where different departments did certain things. Well, part of our big push was HP. So we had that guide. We are, I look at our task planning. Man, that's human performance stuff that we're doing. So we've been doing all that stuff for years. So we're doing certain things. We're doing the ELT stuff. We've got leadership involvement. We've changed some of the vernacular, but we haven't educated our field forces yet because that was the goal. We were going to get all of our managers engaged and understanding last year, and then immediately first quarter of this year, start rolling that out to our hourly folks, because I know our project teams are communicating differently. They're handling safety a little bit differently, and they've communicated to our hourly teams that, but not formally.
Yeah.
So we want those guys to understand, what is safety differently? What are we doing?
Yeah.
Why is this manager all of a sudden now talking to me and coaching me more about certain things?
Yeah.
And how can I play a part? So we had originally planned, as I said, in the first quarter. Of course, that didn't happen because of COVID. Well, as a matter of fact, if you'd look on my screen behind me, I'm penning the letter or the memo to the teams, letting them know we're starting that.
Yeah.
So we're starting our hourly HP training. And I think actually Sheldon has got a session going on today in North Carolina.
That's great.
So we're starting that. We took all of our lessons learned through the HP and everything. We developed it. It's only going to be about a 60 to 90 minute session, Mike, because I think more at this point would be like drinking from a fire hose.
It would, sure.
So we're gonna do a short session, and then actually we're going to develop, we're probably mostly through developing 15 to 20 minute sessions that focus specifically on each one of the principles. and the tools to help with those principles.
Good.
So, I think it's throughout the rest of the year, we're going to focus there.
That's impressive.
The ELT stuff is rolling. Our mentality of, well, I got to tell you something else, and tells you the changes in thinking. Corporate bonus structure for projects. Once upon a time, a component of that had to do with recordable rates, right?
Yeah.
Years ago, we modified that somewhat. We had what we call our leading indicator audit was in there.
Yeah.
In addition to recordable rates still for a project, right? Well, this year, Robin said, I want those rates out of there. And
That's fabulous.
So now we've got three components. We've got a cultural component that it's really subjective, but still good.
Yeah.
And we've got our safety management system assessment component where our safety managers are going out assessing the project, really not just assessing them to say you're doing wrong, to assess them to be part of the team, to help them engage, to do all this stuff that we've outlined that we're going to do. So that's a component there. And it's not going to be a score. It's, are we making improvements? Are we improving the process? And HP is a big component of it as well.
So you're helping them along.
Training, man, it's exciting. It really is. As I said, you could say everything's perfect, but there's challenges around every turn, and that's kind of what makes it interesting too.
And there always will be. There's never going to be that perfect situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of like Robin, your president, has said many times that he tells that story about the train ride, about it being a journey, not arriving at a destination. And so in any journey, you've got the ups and downs, but that is what makes it exciting.
Absolutely. It's August will be my 15th year with Robins. So, and in my mind, Mike, when I first started, I was like, man, maybe 5 years will be kind of approaching our pursuit of safety excellence where I'd like to be. And it's a journey, and we've just continued to get better and better. And I think only when you step and you look back, you see how far you've come.
Yeah.
But I don't want to get lazy in how far we've come either. I want to forget, this is the new normal. This is how we are, and this is how we're going to continue to try to be. So how do
you see, where do you think Robins and Morton will be in 5 years from now?
Man, I hope there's no more old view mentality. I hope there's a relationship let me say this. Our next step after our employees is to engage those subs. I hope we truly can have effect on our subcontractor or trade partner community, because that's really where the rubber meets the road. We self-perform 20 to 25%. Now with our concrete self-perform work and our drywall and low voltage, we do a lot more. But, predominantly we're relying on other companies that have other cultures, that have other mentalities. So we've got to get them engaged. So where I see us in 5 years truly is we've got some key trade partners that understand us even more than they do now, and that are on that same journey with us.
Yeah.
And I think then we really can be successful.
Absolutely. Well, I'm just really proud of you guys, and proud of where you've come, and the hard work you've been doing, Jeff. And I tell you, one of the things that I hear consistently from your managers and your superintendents is how much they appreciate what you've brought to Robins and Morton, and how the culture has grown during this period of time. Because it's just like you said, you don't realize it when you're in the middle of it, but it's when you look back that you realize, we've come all of this way. And you guys truly have done a lot moving towards safety excellence. So it's just, I really applaud you for that.
Yeah, well, thank you. And that's why we call it a pursuit, right?
Yeah.
We're never going to be where we want to be as long as we keep pushing. So.
Exactly. Well, I can't tell you how much I really appreciate you taking the time to do this interview. And I'd really like to get you back on some more of these down the road here. I think it just brings a lot. We've got other clients that are at varying points on their journey. And I think a lot of the stuff that you shared on this podcast will help other folks out a lot. So I really appreciate it very, very much.
Great, Mike. I appreciate you having me on. I think it was, and it's enjoyable, and again, it's fun to talk about kind of where you went. And, I would put it out to you, as I would be willing to do. If you've got somebody that needs some help or wants to have a conversation, by all means, I would definitely share, because, obviously in safety, man, it's about making everybody better. And I don't think there's any trade secrets in safety. So.
And there shouldn't be. And, we do get that oftentimes request. People want to benchmark with someone who's already kind of started maturing their process. Yeah. So that's good to know that we could hook them up with you.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. And we'll do this again.
Sounds great, Mike. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.